first and foremost reason that you may be overthinking is, why do we all overthink? What exactly happens in your mind? If you worry, you feel you care for that loved one. Does this resonate with you? Every time you feel this is not my best work, you're going to feel incapable. And every time you feel incapable, train your brain to breathe consciously. Most of us take Today I'm going to talk about how to stop overthinking and achieve all your goals in record-breaking time. But before we do that, you need to understand, why do we all overthink? What exactly happens in your mind for you to go down spiral and stop taking action? Overthinking happens because of stress. What is stress? Stress is, in very simple languages, the gap between the expectation and reality. Every time you have an expectation from yourself or a situation or somebody, and if the reality does not match that, what happens in your mind is called as stress. What happens during the stress? Every time you sense there is a stress in your environment or in your life, immediately your brain releases adrenaline and cortisol, these two stress hormones. Every time these two stress hormones are released, you feel like either running away from that situation or fighting with that situation. Now, check within your life. Does that happen to you? Are you running away from something or somebody, or are you fighting with something or somebody? And every time this adrenaline and cortisol released in your brain, and if it stays in your body for a longer period of time, what you're going to get is an impact that left with adrenaline and cortisol stress hormones. And these impacts could be overthinking, anxiety, fear, self-doubt, self-worth, all of these things. Whether can you do it or not do it? The question mark that comes in your space, that happens because of the stress hormones. What follows is the fear, and when fear comes, automatically anxiety seeps in. And that's the reason you start overthinking. Now, if you look at overthinking in a big way, these are the major reasons. But what when we go into the micro diving, and what if we identify what could be your primary reason? Because once you identify the trigger behind your overthinking, I'm sure you'll be able to apply certain remedies to it to get over it and then stay on course to achieve your goals. So the first and foremost reason that you may be overthinking is what happened in your childhood. Suppose, let me give an example. Suppose you had an angry parent, angry father, and you did not know how your father is going to react when under stress. If suppose the father in the evening is coming home, and that timing has, he's going to come back home now, and there is a certain element of expectation now you have that your father may be stressed and maybe he'll be angry, and in that anger maybe he'll throw tantrums or maybe he'll beat you up or something. When that happens, your brain starts at that young age learning how to cope with that situation. And to cope with that situation, your mind comes up with various scenarios. And those scenarios you can build in your mind by overthinking. Now, as a child, you probably developed this habit to cope up with that stressor in your life. But it became a permanent habit even though you grew up. Now, not necessarily you have the same stressor going on in your life. Not necessarily you have your father around you who's angry and who's going to beat you up or going to, scold or going to shout. But now that stressor has been replaced by some other stressor in your life. So check carefully in your life. Is there anything that comes from the childhood that you did not deal with? And that is a reason you're still overthinking. You have developed the habit of overthinking. Reason number 2. If you feel that you are not able to control something, human beings are very bad at feeling not in control. Every time you feel that either you are not in control or if your loved one is not in control, you start feeling helpless. And when you start feeling helpless, you try to help that somebody whom you love, or you try to overcome that challenge that you have in your life. But certain things, some issues in our lives are beyond our control. The event that happens in your life sometimes is not entirely in your hand. And when you feel helpless, to avoid that feeling of helplessness, you start overthinking. You start building the scenarios in your head, the worst case scenarios and the best case scenarios. And you start thinking, what can you do in this scenario? How will you overcome it? Worrying becomes a part of your life. Because if you worry, you feel you care for that loved one. Does this resonate with you? Does this ring a bell in your mind? The third reason is a relative of feeling not in control. The third reason of you overthinking could be if you feel uncertain in your life. We human beings are not very good to handle uncertainty. We like predictability, and it comes from the millions of years of conditioning that our brain has gone through. We want to predict how much time will it take for you to reach to a certain destination. How far is that tiger away from you, so that how much time it's going to take to attack you. You want to predict every event in your life. Look at the obsession that we have with the biological age milestones. So it's very critical for us human beings to feel in control and at the same time feel certain about our life and the outcomes that bring in. But let's be honest, neither the events are in your control and neither outcomes. What is in your control is how you respond to that situation. And every time you feel that you lack response, you don't have an appropriate response developed in your space, you start overthinking. How do you develop that appropriate response? You develop the appropriate response by calculating various scenarios in your mind. And to calculate those various scenarios and come up to that certainty, you are going to overthink. Does this happen to you? Whenever you feel uncertain, do you feel that you go into the spiral of overthinking? Fourth reason, perfectionism. Every perfectionist knows this, that they cannot be perfect, but they want to feel perfect. Again, look at the keyword here is feeling perfect. You want to post that blog. You want to send reply to that email. You want to make that phone call. But you wait for that perfect time, perfect moment, that perfect presentation, because you don't feel you're perfect. There's that feeling that I am not enough. This is not good enough. This is not my best work. And every time you feel this is not my best work, you're going to feel incapable. And every time you feel incapable, you are going to overthink because you don't like the feeling of not being perfect. And to just make sure that you feel perfect, you give yourself the feedback that I must overthink about this situation or this proposal or this presentation. The fifth reason that you may be having overthinking is a secondary gain that you may be getting out of overthinking. Now, what is secondary gain? Now, this will be a truth bomb for all of you. The secondary gain that you may feel because of overthinking, let me give you an example about it. If suppose you're in a relationship and you are someone who overthink. Now, suddenly that other person starts giving you more attention just because you overthink, just because you worry too much. Is that the case with you? Is this an attention gaining tactic that you have developed at a very young age? I'm not saying all of this happens because you do it consciously. No, all of these are undercurrent, unconscious behaviors that come up in your space and that you have learned maybe due to some incidents or some events that happened in your life again and again. Now, when you understand why do you overthink, it becomes easier for you then to overcome it and then stay on course with your goals. So how do you do that? The first and most important my remedy for overthinking is journaling. I love journaling. And whoever have advised this, that you should journal your thoughts, has really, really helped people, those who overthink. So take a journal, and when you wake up in the morning, start writing every thought that comes to you. Now, for some of you overthinkers, you may be asking this question right now, oh my God, I think so fast that there is no scope that I can write. Now, you see, that's the whole agenda. Breaking the pattern of overthinking. As simple as that. Most of your overthinking comes from the automatic negative thinking. What is automatic negative thinking? It's not in your control. Suppose there is a stressor that come in your space. There's a trigger that happened in your space, and now you got a worst case scenario in your mind. The moment that worst case scenario popped up in your mind, you started thinking, and before you realize, one thought led to another, and you kind of got into that spiral. Now, to break that spiral, the easiest way to do is to slow down your brain and their thought patterns. How do you slow down your thoughts? You start writing them down. Because when you write them down, you get stuck on that one thought till the time you finish writing it. Now, because you're stuck on that one thought, you break the pattern. You interrupt the pattern of the train of thoughts that's running at the rocket speed in your mind. Do this. It will really, really help you slow down your mind. And don't just do it when you find yourself overthinking, but do it every single day. Second remedy I would like to give you on overthinking is you start breathing consciously. Train your brain to breathe consciously. Most of us take breathing for granted because it happens involuntarily. How about putting some conscious efforts into breathing? Now, not an ordinary breathing, but an abdominal deep breathing. How about focusing on your breath? Take a deep sound breath, like a deep, real deep breath, and let it go through your throat, through your chest, through your abdomen. And as it passes through your abdomen, let your abdomen rise up. Stay there for some time. And then slowly release it. As you release it, let the abdomen go in and let the exhalation happen fully. Now, this kind of a breathing, if you train your brain to do this very often, like maybe you can set an alarm for every 2 hours initially, your brain will pick it up, and eventually you will start with abdominal breathing on the regular basis. When you start this abdominal breathing on the regular basis, your body is automatically going to calm down. Your stress hormones will be less and less in your body. You're giving the message to your sympathetic nervous system that releases the fight and flight response in your space, that everything is okay, I am safe, everyone is safe. And the moment that safety comes in, the certainty comes in. When the certainty comes in, you start feeling more in control. And when you start feeling more in control, automatically your parasympathetic nervous system takes over. Parasympathetic nervous system is a nervous system of calmness, regeneration, planning for future, and being in more control, having a big picture in your mind, in your vision. That's my second remedy for you. The third remedy, what I want you to do is consciously distract yourself. How do you do that? When you overthink, you observe yourself. You are imagining the worst case scenario. And you'll also see a pattern in this worst case scenario. So how about noticing those patterns and write them down? What are some of the worst case scenarios that you keep bringing in your space? And for every worst case scenario, I want you to write down 3 best case scenarios. And the moment you get into overthinking and that worst case scenario pops up, I want you to immediately bring in those 3 best case scenarios. Now, this is not a magic pill. It won't happen like this. It needs some effort. It needs some regular work from your side if you really want to overcome this negative and overthinking. Fourth one, challenge yourself to, to put your energy into something more productive. How will you do that? Wake up in the morning and start something with the physical body. Because when you have excess stress hormones in your body, you can release them through exercise. Whatever exercise you like to do it for 20 minutes and you see your productivity will start increasing. The moment your productivity will go up, your focus will be better. When you're more focused, you will be calmer and you will be in flow to start working on your goals. And the fifth remedy that I want to give you is start writing what you are thankful for, what you're grateful for. It is very essential for you to focus on what is good that is happening in your life already. And let's be honest, all of us can say at least one or two things in our life that are happening best. As simple as you waking up in the morning or even watching this video for that matter. How many people are fortunate enough to open their eyes in the morning? Some people are not doing it. How many people can watch this video? That means you have an internet. So how about focusing on the things that you can be grateful for in your life that will definitely help your brain to rewire and work on your overthinking and stay on course with you to achieve all your goals.